talk about functions. There are two different types of functions that we have in Python. The first groups are called predefined functions, which come with Python. When you install Python, all of those functions are imported, so you have access to all of them. And then we have some user-defined functions, the functions that you create, you define, and then you can use them in your programs. For the first half of the lectures, we are going to focus only on predefined functions and use them as we need, and then later on we are going to learn how to create our own functions and use them in our programs. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things that we can have. So far we had the comments and we had some arithmetic operations that we could use. And up to this point, we mainly use the shell in Python to be able to type those lines of code. So one single line at a time. Like if you want to do exponentiation, so I have 2 to the power of 3, it gives you the result that you want. And we talked about variables. We talked about how you can create and assign a value into an identifier and be able to use that identifier to see the result, okay? So now we are going to switch back into the text file that we have, okay? So coming from the shell into the text file, we want to have, instead of one line of code, we want to have multiple lines at the same time. So I'm going to use variables, a concept that we already know. So I'm going to create a variable, this variable num1, I'm going to assign a value to it. So I'm going to assign this value 5 to it, which is type integer. And then I'm going to have another variable, I'm going to call it num2, and I'm going to assign a different value to it. I'm going to put 2.5, which is a float type, into it. So as you see, we have 2 lines of codes here. And in Python, in version 3.10 above, you can show the line numbers. So if you go to options, you can have the line numbers. So in line 8, I have a variable, num1, and in line 9, I have a second variable, num2. You can have as many variables that you want. You can pick different names for them. Just be careful. The names must be unique. And if I use like num1 again here, and put another value, assign another value to num1, I'm overwriting the first one, okay? I'm basically destroying the 5 that I had inside that box that I created, that I called num1. I had 5 in it first in line 8, and then line 10, I said, okay, now I want to put 10 in it. So it takes 5 out, destroys it, and put 10 in it. Okay, so you're basically overwriting the value of num1 that you have. So be very careful if you want to have unique variables, just pick different names for them. Okay, now I have these 2 lines of code, and I can save it and run this code for myself. Okay, when you want to run your code, unlike like in shell, you were just pressing enter. Like, let me go back to the shell. So if I have num1 here equal to 5, if I press enter, it's going to just go through and run it for me, right? So now if I say, okay, what is num1? It's going to show the value of num1, right? So now let's go back here. So if I have this code and if I want to run it, I need to go to this run tab up here, click on it, and you need to run your module or press F5 in Windows machines, okay? So I go to run module, and it's going to go through and run my code, right? As you see, it went through, it shows me the information about where my code is, what the name of my file is, and things like that, but I don't see any outputs. If I type num1, it's going to show me the value of num1. If I type num2, it's going to show me the value of num2. But that doesn't make any, like, it is not the best way of doing it. Let's say I have like hundreds of variables. Should I go ahead and just type each one's name to see the value of them? No. There should be an easier way for us to be able to see the values if we want to, right? So to do that, there is a predefined function that we can use that displays the value that you want. It is called print. And as it comes with the name, it prints a value for you. So I'm going to say print, and whatever you want to print, you can put here. So for now, I'm going to say, okay, print this value of num1 for me. A couple of things here. First of all, this is a predefined function. All of the predefined functions are going to turn purple. That is one of the things that when I was talking about color coding in Python, that is one of them. So all of the predefined functions in Python are going to turn purple. So that is one identifier for you to know this is a predefined function. So as soon as you put it, it's going to be purple. So that is one thing that is very important when it comes to predefined function. The second thing is all of the predefined function, all of the functions in general and methods that we are going to learn later are going to end with parentheses. So here, that is what I have. I have parentheses, and inside parentheses, I have num1, the value that I want to see. So it's going to go through, take num1, see the value of it, and then it prints it for us. So let's see how it is going to do it for us. So I'm going to press F5, or you can go to run and run your module. So either way is going to do it. It asks you to save your file, and then it's going to run it. So now we see 5 because we asked Python to print it for us. I'm going to put both codes side by side so we can see the result and the code at the same time. So next I'm going to put another print statement here. So we are going to say, okay, I want to also see num2. So let's do that. I'm going to run the code. Now I'm going to see the value of num1, which is 5, and then the value of num2 with the order that I have, the exact order. So if I change the order of these two statements, I'm going to first see num2 and then num1. So if you run it, now you're going to have num2 and then num1. The way that Python works is it's going to start from the top and it's going to go down line by line. It's going to see num1. Okay, num1 is 5. It knows that. Now, num2, it assigns 2.5 into num2. Done. It moves on. And then line 11, you're printing num2. So it goes through, takes the value of num2 and prints it for you. And then same thing with num1. So it goes through and does all of the stuff that you have in the order of the statements that they come. And it's sequential, right? First line, second line, third line, and it goes down all the way to the end. If there's any issues along the way, it's going to stop right there, okay? Let's see an example of that. Let's say I have a typo with my function. First of all, the color of it is not purple anymore because it doesn't look, it's not a predefined function. The name doesn't look like a predefined function, so it's not going to be purple. So now if I run this one, it's going to give me an error message. It's like, okay, this name is not defined. Did you mean print? It's going to kind of help you to figure out the issue, but it's not going to help you too much. So it tells you exactly where that problem happened. So it's in line 11. So if you go to line 11, it tells you, okay, this name is not defined. Just help me here. What should I do to fix this issue? And you come back and you say, okay, I have a typo. Let's fix it. It turns purple and everything is good. If you run it again, it's going to go through, right? But again, whenever there is an issue with Python, when there is an error message or error that is happening, an exception, it's going to stop right there. It's not going to continue. So it stopped at right at line 11 because the name that we put was not defined, wasn't a print function, and it didn't know what to do. So that is like a first example of a predefined function. I'm going to create a list here of some of the predefined functions. So print was the first one that we are going to work with and learn, and then later on I'm going to introduce more functions. A couple of things that goes with print function is, first of all, you can pass a value to it to print. So far, we're only passing one value to print. You can pass as many values as you want to print function. So I can eliminate this one and say, okay, I want to see both values in the same line. I don't want them to be in separate lines. I don't want to have two separate print functions. I want to have just one and see the value, pass the values to it, and see them both in the same line. So if I run this one, you're going to see num1 first, which comes first in the parentheses for print. So you see 5 first, and then you're going to see 2.5, which is the value of num2. If you have other stuff, you can print them as well. So let's say I want to combine them with some text messages so I know which one is which. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to put a string here. First value, I need to space it. So I have this first value, and I'm going to put this colon, and I'm going to put the comma here. So you see the strings, type of strings that we have in Python, all of them are going to turn green. So if you have something that is green, that means you have a type of string value. So I have this string, and I have my comma, which separates different arguments from each other. And then I have num1, and then I have num2. I'm going to just test this part to see what I get, and I'm going to add another string for num2. So let's run this one. So here's what we see now. We have first value is 5. So now I'm going to put another string before 2.5 to see a text for num2. So here I have the comma. I'm going to create my text here, second value, colon, and then outside I'm going to separate them by a comma. So as you see, all of the arguments that I have are separated by comma inside the print function. And that is going to be for every single function that you have. So if you have multiple values, more than one value, you're going to separate them by comma. So now let's run this one. So we are going to see this. First value is 5 and second value is 2.5. You can put the stuff between the two as well if you want to. So that means I need to have some other strings attached to the ones that I have. So I'm going to put a comma here, for instance, and say, all right, I want to see that comma. So first value is 5, second value is 2.5. Okay, so now I have a question for you. So we have this print function, and we pass a couple of values to it. How many values that they pass to this print function? So how many arguments I pass to it? The way to answer that is, first you can go ahead and count the number of arguments that you have. So I have 1 here, which is type of string, and then I have this num1, which is type number, is like a integer type. I have this second string. So I have the third argument, and then I have this last one, which is numeric value, and that is type float. So I have 4 arguments that goes into my function. The other way to it's about the same lines on how to figure out how many arguments that you have, which in some cases becomes easier, and I will talk about that later, is to count the number of commas that you have and then add 1 to it. So in this example, I have 1, 2, and 3 commas that are black. So this one doesn't count because that is part of a string that you have. And this means that you have 4 arguments since we have 3 black commas. So you can do that, count the number of commas. Commas are basically a way for you to separate different arguments. If I take a comma out, it's going to complain. It's going to give me an invalid syntax. It won't be able to run it because it's not able to separate the 2 arguments that you have inside the print statement. So in cases like that, it's going to stop right there. It's not going to move forward. It's not going to even run the code. So you need to make sure you fix it. And for that reason, because it's not going to go through, it knows exactly, okay, where the commas are and how you separate the different arguments from each other. So in this case, we have 3 commas. That means we have 4 arguments inside the print function.